I'm Sterling Ball, and this has been my life and my family's life, Brian, Scotty. And one of the things when we talk about family, people think it's a cliche and a bad marketing tool. But in the instance of Ernie Ball Music Band and our artists, they really are truly part of our family. And I think it's great, and just having a little pizza here and the whole family together. But a couple things. We've been I think it's 23 years John Petrucci's been playing Ernie Ball Music Band guitars.
23 years. That's crazy.
And believe me, he'll do some talking. I'm just going to get it started. I'm opening for John here. But I want to thank all of you. I've been here for a couple of years. It's nice to know I can still draw a crowd. So, John, let's get the business down. A lot of you people have an assumption or an idea, or maybe you never thought of how a company works with an artist and what kind of contracts they have, what kind of situation. And if you've seen us before, when I started doing this, I was 29 years old. We bought Leo Fender's brand, not a factory. And I said, oh, geez, I got to build a factory now. I got to design guitars. And one of the things, Steve Morse was one of the first. And I told Steve, you know what? I don't want a contract. We don't have a contract with any of the artists you see here. I don't want a lawyer or a piece of paper dictating our relationship. So if we don't make him happy and we don't provide him with the tools that he needs or she needs, then we should be fired. And thank God through. And by the way, that's not just that's not an idea from me. That's a commitment from Drew, from everybody on the team down to Sanding, is that they understand our job is serving artists and creating tools for artists. So with that, we're going to start by renewing our contract. I've got some witnesses.
It's official. It's official.
So
thank you.
The last thing I'm going to say, well, that's a total lie. Okay. But I know a lot of you want to see him play and hear him play. But it's really the worst place to have an artist play. And YouTube and all that's full of it. And plus, when he plays, I've done this with him before. Here's what we see, just in case you know. Basically, I could do that. So what I'd rather it be is a conversation where we talk about how he approaches the guitar, how he approaches the guitar design, how he approaches playing, and the roles that music play in his life. So, your whole family plays.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us about the kids.
Yeah, so, Sterling said before, can everybody hear us? I know it's very noisy in here. Cool. I'm sorry, I'm really distracted by all the new amazing colors behind me. I keep turning around like, oh, we'll talk about that. But yeah, Sterling's whole family is here. They're all in the audience, and my wife Raina is here. You guys know Raina? That's right.
Her Majesty.
Her Majesty. Amazing guitar player. And yeah, all three of our kids play, and our twins, or boy-girl twins, are in a duo. It's called Mount Juliet. It's Mount Juliet. We got a fan. It's not prog metal at all. It's indie singer-songwriter, but they're amazing. And yeah, so, just like your family, music is such a big part of it. Guitar is such a big part of it. There's not a room you can go into in our house that doesn't have a guitar in it. And, I was saying this before. My son's like working on Little Wing. He's like, Ma, how do you play it? I'm like cleaning the cat box.
John, what we call a room in our house without a guitar? Unfinished.
Yeah, exactly.
So, John, we started designing guitars 23 years ago. You showed up at a Monday Night Football party, and I'd never met him. I saw him in Japan, but he was in the next booth over. But this is what makes music so interesting, is the love of the guitar and the passion for the guitar, is that we met the night before, fully knowing the next morning we were going to design the JP guitar, having not known each other. and we stayed up really late listening to different guitar players. It was great. And the next day, I remember everything about that process.
Me too.
And you were a little kind of apprehensive, right?
Yeah. Well, what was great about it is Sterling is so good at doing this. So I showed up at his house, and like you said, he would host the Monday Night Football. There were like, it was packed with people. I don't know how he'd have like the whole Cal Poly over his house. And so I go there not knowing everybody. Everybody was really welcoming, and he had amazing food and everything. And part of the night, he like took me to the sort of living family room area and just started playing all of these incredible guitar players that I had never heard of coming from my background. He was like, check out these guys. And I was blown away by some of the guys. I don't even remember all the names. Do you remember the guys you played for
I
me?
remember Buddy Emmons, Joe Pass.
Yeah, like
Lenny Bro.
some of them I heard of, some of them I didn't. But what that did is it kind of started the flow because we were getting to know each other. We both loved guitar and music. And like he said, the next day we started working on the first guitar about 23 years ago.
So what happens when you're doing a guitar is a lot of times, well, I mean, when you're the designer, and Drew and Brian can tell you, you're kind of trying to get inside the person's head, their heart, and their soul, and they can't articulate it. John articulated really well, but a couple things I realized the minute I was with him, and this is going to tie to the guitar right now for you, is the precision in which he approaches the guitar and how perfectly clean he plays, but also how important everything is, including he rests his pinky finger, anchors it under the bobbin. And we realized that 10,000ths of an inch, that's like your E string on a regular slinky, he could feel the difference. So to us, it was recognizing just how critical ergonomics were, which started with the original JP, and then tell us where ergonomics led, and maybe.
Yeah.
Raina, can I grab this one?
Yeah. So this. So I'll answer Sterling's question, but just as an aside, so it's the 10th anniversary of the Majesty, believe it or not. My wife Raina, yes, she's been playing the Ernie Ball Music Man guitars as long as I have. She was like, John, I have this idea for like a white iridescent, big sparkle guitar. She had this idea for years, and
Let me help you.
yeah, we worked with Tomas and the guys there, and with samples and stuff. And they built the guitar and came to the house. She took it out of the case, and I was like, oh my God, that's one of the most beautiful guitars I've ever seen in my life. What? Yeah. Voices of Angels came out, and I was like, you turn it in the light, and it's so 3D. So I said, hey, do you mind if we make it part of the production? And so this one's called Her Majesty's Request. That's the name of that color.
So there's a lot of curves on this guitar,
Yeah.
and I want to talk about it. And you can see off center there, but every curve serves a purpose. And that's really interesting. So
Right.
John, would you explain like the switch path,
Yeah.
for example?
So Sterling was asking me before about ergonomics and where that led. And it is kind of annoying, and I annoy myself that I feel these little things like, something's slightly off, or the thickness of this or that. So all the decisions that led to this guitar, and also the JP15 as well, but we're talking about the Majesty now, we're all through experimentation, working closely with Drew Montel right over there.
Wait, Drew, raise your hand.
Right? Yes, the master. Master engineer,
Well, yeah.
artisan. Yes.
If you love the Majesty, you'll love Drew.
He's the man. And all of the decisions that made into building our first neck-through guitar were all based on those little feel things, ergonomics, the arc of all the controls on the instrument, rounding off parts where your hand rests, things like that, the neck carve, the fretboard radius. I mean, every single detail is so, focused on trial and error. Let's try that. So
It's intentional.
It's intentional, and the guitar is just a masterpiece, and I'm so lucky to have this.
Do you remember when we did this bridge plate, how we came up with that?
The bridge plate.
What, remember?
Yeah. With the lotion thing?
Yeah.
Well, so that was the first guitar with the
Right.
with the
Right.
Yeah.
But that is for that.
Again, for me, it's all about comfort and ergonomics. So I don't know if you've ever played a guitar and where your hand rests, things feel kind of sharp or uncomfortable there. We came up with a bridge cover that was rounded to kind of take care of that. So many different things like that. Even thinking about performance, when you're playing live and you sweat and you go to reach for a volume control or something, we're like, well, why don't we put like rubber grips around so that doesn't happen? Things like that. Everything was so detailed. I love the angled headstock. Drew, that was something that you came up with. Yeah. Helps with the string pull and everything. The neck carve is so beautiful. I mean, it's not a more comfortable guitar to play. Unbelievable.
Do you know what you learn from great people that have big hearts and open minds? You can learn. And that's one of the things we do as a company, whether it's, if you look at all these different, whether it's Luke or Tosin with Brian and Drew and stuff, is that we really have to make sure that we listen. Okay, when we listen, we learn. And if we listen and learn, hopefully we make them happy. John, you've made a change in the band. Let's just go straight for the juggler.
Let's go. Well, before we do that, could we just say hi to all the balls that are in the audience? Where's Brian and Shelly? Is Scotty in the audience? No? Okay. Is Stacy in the audience?
She's right back there.
Hey.
She's short.
Yeah. Anyway, love these guys. I mean, this is a 23 years or so family relationship, and I just love you guys, and I'm so grateful to be part of this. But I'm dodging Sterling's question, but you guys know the answer. We have our new old drummer. Yeah, no, we're really excited, as you guys well know.
Oh wait.
Our original
That's
drummer,
beard oil.
Mike Portnoy, is back in Dream Theater, and we're all excited about that. Yeah, that's going to be fun. Did anybody see him play last night? How was that? It was nice? Cool. It was beautiful. When's the album coming out? I can't answer that yet. But I can tell you this. We start the new album shortly after NAMM. Like when we all get back, we're gonna get going. I'm not sure what we're going to come up with, but it's going to be fun. We're going to be sort of reunited with that original chemistry. We met when we were 18 years old.
That's
so
amazing.
Long time ago. We've known each other for a really, really long time. You guys probably know this, but I'll say it anyway. What's a funny thing? Did you know that 3 of the original guys in Dream Theater married 3 of the girls from Mean Streak? And we all had kids around the same time, and they're all friends. And I keep saying this, but it all is a family situation. So we're happy to have Mike back for sure.
Okay, so let's talk. I didn't do much versus during COVID. I hid out and stuff. But John, you had a kind of a busy COVID.
I did.
And you did Liquid Tension experiment.
Right.
Experiment with Tony.
Yeah.
And with who else?
Jordan and Mike. Yeah.
Jordan and Mike. Okay, and then you did a solo album.
I did. Terminal Velocity. Yes. Yes.
No one's calling him a slacker. And then they did the new Dream Theater.
We did the new
record,
Dream Theater.
And
That's
you
right.
toured solo.
I toured solo the following year. Yes. I did not sit still.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Hey. And I did the camp. That's right. You're right.
let me ask you.
Yeah.
How do you approach a Liquid Tension record versus a Dream Theater record?
Gotcha. That's a good question. So
Thank
you guys know Liquid Tension experiment? Yeah. The whole sort of philosophy with that project is it's a lot of improvisation. Like it's just done really quickly. If an album takes longer than 2 weeks, like it's too long. It's really, we get together, we just start jamming, we record the jams, a lot of times we put the jams on the album too, so you can hear what we were doing. And then we make songs out of those jams, and it all happens really fast. And Tony Levin makes a lot of espresso, yeah, which is amazing. He brings his espresso machine in, and it's just a lot of fun. Now, a Dream Theater album is more of a epic sort of production, where we have a long history. This will be our 16th album we're going to write, and so there is definitely more thought and story arc and intent put into writing that. But in some ways, some of the process is similar, that we do jam a lot. A lot of times songs come out of jams, but it doesn't take us 2 weeks. It'll take us a lot longer.
So jamming,
Yeah,
that's how you found your voice.
it is. Yeah. When I was a teenager, I started playing guitar when I was 12. So, a long time ago. But when I was a teenager, and this was the best thing. I grew up in New York on Long Island. Any New Yorkers here? Any East Coast people? Couple? Okay. So Long Island is a suburb of New York. And we had rock radio stations that always played Ozzy, Metallica, Iron Maiden. So we had all the music coming at us. And for some reason, that year or those few years, everybody played an instrument. Like, you couldn't walk, down the block without hearing a band coming from a house. So what I would do is I would just go from house to house and jam with all the different guys. And it was wild because I had friends that were really into the Grateful Dead. So I would just go over to their house and they would get high. I wouldn't, but they would, and we would just jam on Hendrix, and the Grateful Dead for hours. And I don't know why they put up with me, because I just soloed over a drummer and a bass player.
Well, I know why.
Why?
Because back then, when you're young, you never listened to what the other guy's doing.
Right. And then I would go.
Hey, how do I sound?
I had my other friend, this guy, he was really into all the European metal. He was into the Scorpions and all this stuff I kind of never even heard of. So I'd go. He had this drum set stuffed into his room. You couldn't even walk in the room, but I'd go in there and we'd jam on Metallica and stuff like that. And then I had these guys that were all in a jazz band. So they were into John Scofield and Pat Metheny and all this stuff. And I'd go in and we'd jam on that. So that's how I learned how to play. And I would get a little taste of everything. But I think it's the interaction and the jamming and the improvising and putting yourself in a situation where you're a little uncomfortable. It's great. It's really, really great.
Taking chances.
Taking chances.
I want to take the jam and stuff. I want to kind of complete a train of thought, which I don't do often anymore. But what happens through that jamming and having a wide spice rack, okay, for cooking, and whether all that stuff, what that does, there's a million people who can play a solo. There's a million people who can do it. There's a handful of people who develop their own voice. And John, that's how you developed your voice. You may think it's prog rock, but a lot of what came from Clapton, Hendrix, or
right.
You're more like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest.
Yeah.
So I'm older than him, so I was listening to the other guys. But I think that finding a voice, and the way you find your voice is by making sure you have as many tools in the toolkit as you can. Is that
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It really does help you develop your own style, because you kind of get all these different influences and it goes into a melting pot. And I'll tell you what, it came in really handy the first time I did a G3 tour. I was asked to do G3. That was 2001. And next thing you know, I find myself on stage with Steve Vai and Joe Satriani, trading solos. And I'm just like a kid, in my head. I'm not actually a kid, but in my head. I went back to being 16 years old, jamming with my friends in the basement. So those experiences actually ended up being really helpful, and it made me feel comfortable. You guys must know many, many guitar players. You have many friends. You guys all play. You know that some guys are more comfortable in those situations and can hang in any, and some are petrified. So it's like it's interesting what prepares you in life. You never know what's going to happen, but it's something that I recommend for sure. And plus, it's fun. Unless you turn up too much. We did a show a long time ago at Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club in the UK, and we had all these special guests. We had Steve Howe from Yes, and we were rehearsing, and he turned around and he said, "Could you turn down, please?"
Hey, John, have you ever been with a guy that you played with on stage?
I've never been with a guy.
Yeah.
Just want to get that straight. I mean,
Well, how about at Berkeley? Have you ever played with a guy where you said, let's play something, and you played something you knew he couldn't play to get even with him in another trip?
No. Sterling always tells this story.
I'm old, I repeat.
We did a sort of thing like this, but we were playing, and it was at Berkeley. It was at Guitar Center across from Berkeley, right, in Boston. And so we were going to do some sort of jam thing. Now, it was revenge. Let me just say this. When I first joined the Ernie Ball family, Sterling thrust me on stage with Albert Lee, Steve Morris, Steve Lukather, and we had to play
Country Boy,
which is like the country giant steps, which is like all major chords like whizzing by. And I think I sat there and played chromatics for like a half hour. So Sterling says I got him back because when we did a thing at Berkeley, I was like, let's jam. And I set the metronome to like 220. And
a backing track with changes at about 440. So, do you remember how well I played that
I
day?
remember how well you played. I remember what you did.
Tell me.
You turned your volume off.
And they all laughed at me, and I said, no, I just taught you a really good lesson. If you don't have anything to say, shut up. Sometimes less is more. Okay, John, I know they've got us on a tight schedule, but I'm going to go over because they can't fire me. So when you're developing your style and your voice, it's through experimenting and being exposed and learning how to play the different things. Now, that's not just for soloing. Would you tell me about rhythm guitar and how critical it is to you? And also, I know that a lot of times you'll judge a player by their rhythm.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, listen, I from all the bands I told you, that I grew up listening to and stuff, and I was sitting there soloing over guys for hours. Yes, I was doing that. But the reality is that if you think about a song and playing a song, I mean, what percentage is rhythm of the song? It's probably like 98%. That's probably a good guess. I mean, the way that you play rhythm. Now, this goes across to many styles, but I'm talking specifically in like metal or the kind of prog metal that I play. It's very rhythmically intense, and the tighter a grasp and approach you have with that, I think the better the band sounds, right? So for me, I was always so locked in with the drummer, like so locked in, and that developed that style. So, and it's also a stamina thing. I mean, soloing is one thing, but sitting there playing whatever, an 8-minute song, a 15-minute song, a 20-minute song, all your rhythm chops and stamina has to be there. And to me, that makes the band sound amazing. The soloing is fun. It's cool. It could be thematic and melodic and really help with the song. It could be fun and it could be like driving a fast car. But the rhythm playing, I mean, all my favorite bands, the core rhythm section, the guitar and bass interacting with the drummer, that's what makes the sound of the band. And if you think about it, it's what makes the band stand out from one to the next, right?
Guys, this sounds like Masters of the Obvious. It's not. Honestly, it's so critical to how the track sounds, to everything works. And I think hearing John Petrucci, which a lot of people would think about the soloing thing, don't understand how much he thinks about time and feel.
Yeah.
Some other guitar players with great rhythm guitar players you listen
I mean,
to.
all the guys that I was heavily influenced by. I mean, Steve Morris continues to be my hero.
How many of you watched Rick Pieto's Steve Morse?
Yeah.
I
Yeah, that
think
was
that's
really cool.
one of the best podcasts I've ever seen, or whatever. I don't know. If
You immediately, because he starts off like playing a song, right? You immediately get a sense of what a great composer Steve is, and when it comes down to it, I mean, guitar as a craft or a sport is like one thing when we talk about playing and technique and guitar design and blah blah blah, but the music is ultimately what we're all aiming for, and that's what moves us. That's what makes us relate to a certain band or artist. Is, I think, for me, is the music and how that hits you, and composition is a huge part of it. How many guitar players or other musicians do you know that, yeah, they play amazing, but you don't really want to listen to them play? I know that sounds mean. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, let me get you off the hook.
But with
there.
somebody like Steve, you want to listen to those
Everything.
songs. Yeah.
So, let's talk about solo, a single note solo, which is how solos started, and how solos have morphed over time with great players like you into almost, you can finish the sentence.
Like an orchestration. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of different ways of looking at this. Talking about soloing and improvising. If you're a guitar player or a sax player or whatever, yes, they are single note lines you're playing over something. But in the setting of the composition of a song, I think it gets more interesting when you approach it like you're orchestrating the song, and the solo ends up being just as interesting as the rest of the composition. I mean, that's my approach. I like that approach.
And
It's
if you
fun.
listen to some of the ones that are multi-layered, which I call orchestrated,
Yeah.
a lot of times listen beneath 2 or 3 levels, and you can either hear the melody coming back in,
Yeah.
or some percussive kick, some accent. So it's really an interesting way to become a better player, is to think in terms of when you're building that track,
Yeah.
thinking in terms of harmony and orchestration.
Yeah, and also being really listening to the rhythm section, who you're playing with, how you're interacting. One of the solos I did early on, that kind of it hit people, it grabbed people, and I was trying to wonder why, but it was the Under a Glass Moon solo from Images and Words. And thank you. And I remember when I was writing that, the rhythm section behind it was so weird to me. Like, I couldn't just improvise over it. So I remember thinking, like, I have to kind of make this just like fit in with the different rhythmical sections. And so that's what I did, and it ended up being really sort of interesting and different. So that's a really good example of listening to what's going on. It takes more composing. I mean, I didn't just like, okay, hit record and play that. It took a while to write that and everything, but it's just a fun, different way of approaching soloing. It takes a bit more shaping and crafting and thinking, and hopefully you don't overthink it, and it's still something that like is moving. But that was a fun solo to do.
Getting to make these things and spending my life making these tools and getting to interact, and actually John and I actually play music, and I know a lot of people, when we've done it in public, go like, why is he doing this? I think you know why. It's a communication.
It is a communication. This started out from the beginning, from the moment I walked into Sterling's house at that Monday Night Football party, and we realized how much we had in common, having never met. Sterling released a solo album a few years ago. He is an amazing guitar player, bass player, ukulele player, and I did a Disney medley on that record, if you guys ever heard that. But he has a second one coming out, and he gets all his friends to play on there, and so it's an amazing thing. But can I tell him what we did?
Yeah.
So we did a version. Do you guys know the song Green Eyed Lady? Okay, so if you haven't heard that one, what band was that again? What was the original band? I'm spacing out, a 70s band. I should know this. But it always struck me as like a kind of proggy hit from the 70s.
It scared the daylights out of me.
Yeah, we did an instrumental version of Green Eyed Lady that it's going to come out on his second album. But we always have that connection of music, guitar. We either talk about music, guitar, or cooking, smoking.
Food.
Meat.
And
Yeah.
John Ferraro, are you here? John?
I don't see him.
John's a drummer in the band that's
Yeah.
played on everything. Wonderful musician. And when you talk about John Ferraro as a drummer, a professional drummer, he can play anything
Yeah, he's amazing.
with feel.
Amazing,
So-
right in the pocket. And Sterling, I don't want to run out of time either. I just want to quickly say the colors, I keep getting distracted by the colors.
Well, no.
do we have all of them up or no?
Yeah, why don't you grab the ink stain?
Oh, the 8 string's not here. But we have some cool, we finally were able to do one that's like a Northern Lights. Yeah, there it is. You got when we get off the stage, you guys go look.
Here, hold
That
on.
that one's called Arctic Aurora.
Let me get that for you.
Oh, thank you, Sterling. Yes. That's a full maple top burl guitar. It's crazy. We did one called Blue Ink burl, so it's another burl top, full top in blue ink. You got it?
I don't have to go to the gym now.
Yeah, these are the most beautiful finishes we've ever done. I don't know how these guys continue to make such amazing finishes. You guys saw Her Majesty's request. We did one called a Red Nebula. We had the purple nebula, so we did a red nebula. That's a full maple top quilt. Beautiful, right? I want all of them now. And then on the other wall, we did a black one that has a bit of a shine or a sparkle. And that one's called Black Frosting.
I'm tired.
He's tired. We'll let you guys see this. We have one that reminded me of Wicked on Broadway. So it's Gravity Green. It's defying gravity. Yes. And then we did a blue silk, which is somewhere. And we also did one that I didn't name yet. It's kind of pomegranate-y. We need a name for it. Anyway, those are the new 2024. You guys get a chance, come up and take a look at them.
We got time for 3 questions.
He's asking me about the band Rush and my experience with it. Well, that's my favorite band of all time is Rush. You know, like I mentioned before, growing up on Long Island in New York, I would hear things like The Spirit of Radio and movie and Limelight and stuff like that on the radio. But it wasn't until my friend was like, "Oh no, you got to go deeper," and he played me The Trees. That's from the Hemispheres record, and so that's my favorite Rush album if I had to pick one. I mean, that has La Via Strangiato and Hemispheres and all that great stuff. And it ended up being a huge influence on me and the guys. Big influence. Hey. So he asked me if we're going to do another Guitar Universe. Absolutely. It's not announced yet, but we definitely will. We did 4 so far. Sterling was a guest at one of them. Raina was a guest instructor at 2 of them. We have, I see campers and friends right in front of me.
Okay,
I see
hold on.
campers and friends all over.
Hold
So yeah,
on.
we'll do another one.
I'm not Henning, but I haven't been invited back. Okay?
Ah.
I did such a good job, I broke it.
Oh, okay. My favorite dish? My favorite is Raina's sauce, and don't take that the wrong way.
Wait.
The Sunday sauce with the meatballs and you know, pasta, and my favorite shape pasta depends on the sauce. But I do like bow tie. They're really like classy looking.
Okay, back here somebody's been, I said 3, I'm going to go more.
Yeah. So he's asking me if I write out the music like as I'm writing it. Sometimes, if it's something I really want to remember, like the exact fingering, you know, for me it's quicker I'll either film it or record it or something like. But sometimes, I know Jordan, he gets everything transcribed. He writes everything, and he'll read everything. But yeah, I do a lot by memory. I have a crazy memory. I don't remember everything, but I can remember songs. My own songs.
Okay, what I did is his hand was hitting a couple things. This is when we'd actually make prototypes with chisels and like drills and stuff and not computers, and trying to figure out where to take off the wood. So I started by putting lotion on his hand and then had him play and then drew the silhouette around where the lotion would be. And then when it didn't register or register right angle, we knew we were there. That's how we did the scoop too on the original one.
Right.
We took that whole thing because we were having the hard, and I know I gotta quit. We were having the hardest time getting a contour this way, and I went home, and the next morning, oh, I got it. Let's make the contour go this way. But then we had to fit his arm. And I'll make this quick. About 5 years later, he calls me. He goes, I'm really I'm happy. I don't want to get it wrong, but I'm struggling with the guitar right now. You don't want John Petrucci struggling with your guitar. It's the only time he asks. Well, he says, it just doesn't feel right. So we start making more prototypes, and I call him. I say, John, have you done any lifestyle changes, like become a power lifter? Well, yeah. Well, when I talked about this 10,000 of an inch, the bicep was an inch bigger, okay? So at that point,
only an inch?
It wasn't the guitar, it was musclehead here. Anyway,
That's so funny.
Do you have any final thing? Because we're getting the...
Yes, we got to finally wrap it up. I will say, just really quickly, that working together on the guitars has been something that I've enjoyed doing with Sterling for years and years and years. I love you, buddy. This was so much fun. And thanks for renewing the contract.
I want to thank the team at Ernie Ball Music Man, the dealers, the distributors, and the consumers. You guys make it all possible. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Thank you.